Tell me about that. How did it help you make the trailer?
Yeah, so normally what I do is if I'm cutting a trailer, I go through the whole film. So I wait till the movie's done, watch it front to back, and then I just start flagging lines of dialogue that sound good. I don't worry about the visuals, I just cut the dialogue down. So I'm like, okay, what sounds good? What's gonna add to the story? What's gonna kind of shape the narrative, express the themes, whatever, set up some questions. And then I put all of those lines in a sequence, and then I start experimenting. This time what I did was I used an AI tool called Descript, which can basically just analyze audio and then give you a transcript of it. So I did an MP3 of the whole movie. It analyzed it. It broke down every single line of dialogue. Then I copied and pasted the dialogue into ChatGPT 4, and I said, I'm writing a trailer, or I'm making a trailer, blah, blah, blah. This is my usual process. I normally look for these type of lines of dialogue. I want you to go through and I want you to select the best lines of dialogue for the trailer. And it went through and it did a really good job of pulling apart and cherry picking, like sometimes like really ambiguous lines that would be unexpected, but actually would work really well in the trailer, like just little things. And then I put that aside, and then I did my own version. So I tried to kind of forget what ChatGPT did. I did my own version.
Process.
And then I compared them, and then I was like, okay, wherever there's crossover here, I know I have to use those, because clearly, like, we're both, me and the computer, are both thinking this is good. Yeah. And then what I did was I sequenced them in the order that made sense to me, but then I put the lines back in, and I eliminated all the ones I wasn't going to use, and I said, okay, now put these in a different order based on what you think is going to be a more effective trailer. And it reordered them, and I didn't use all of it, but a lot of the decisions it made were really smart, and it started pairing things together that I wouldn't have done because I associated, like, let's say 2 lines had to be together because they're in the same scene, but the AI might spread them out and say, like, who cares? You can, it's not worried about what the visuals are looking like, right? Yeah. So it helped speed up my process. It definitely made it more interesting to cut this trailer just to see what would happen. And I think, to me, at least right now, that's how AI is going to benefit filmmakers. It's like using it just as almost like a co-pilot. Like, it's like another partner, creative partner that you're working with, or an assistant or whatever. I mean, I'm using it for business. I'm using it for so many things right now, like to analyze data on my website and sales figures and trends and come up with blog post ideas. So, like, it's definitely integrated into, like, everything I do already. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you that, like, we're only going to see more of that, but fingers crossed that it's continues to benefit us more than it makes us just totally obsolete.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make us obsolete, because think about it. We have cars that are incredibly fast.
Yes.
And we still pay attention to humans racing against each other.
Yeah.
Like, nobody needs to run fast
That's
anymore.
a great point.
But we still pay attention to that and celebrate it. And, like, if you go around driving in a Ferrari really fast, okay, whatever, you have a fast car.
It shows you bought or rented a fast car.
If you're Usain Bolt and you're the fastest human on the planet, then you get millions of dollars just to go and be you and, like, promote products and go places. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. And also, now we call AI everything. Now people, like, send me links to, like, little reels on Instagram with, like, oh, this plugin that does this and that for your video editor, or cleans the audio. It's like, we have had that for like 20 years now. It's getting better. It's just like new software that is getting better. But we have been doing things with AI for a long, long time.
Yep.
And even with the special effects, which is, I think, the similar thing in a less advanced scale. When you look at all the animated movies that we love, they're made with software, but they still go and cast major actors to do the voices.
Exactly.
And pay them all this money to be there, and then you have people still animating the cartoons. So it doesn't matter how advanced it gets, we're still going to be the ones coming up with the art of it and celebrating. I think the most beautiful thing that humans make, especially with film and art, is creating a dream or an idea that you had in your brain and turning that into a reality through this process that you were talking about of finding the colors and finding like the right words that go in the right place, and then that is something magical.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear about your process making your film now. I watched the trailer, it looks very intriguing. So how is the process of you coming up with the story, the idea for that, and then making the film?
Yeah, it was a complete experiment more than anything I've ever done. So I was kind of telling you offline, I've made a bunch of other films, made a bunch of short films. I did 2 other features that I fully finished and released. One feature that I never released that I finished like years and years ago. And anyway, I always had it in my mind that I'd do like maybe 3 micro budget features, and then I'd try to, get some bigger investment and do something a bit bigger. And I realized the one thing I'd never done is the thing I always wanted to do, which is go and shoot a movie basically by myself with a couple of actors. And I wanted to do it because a few reasons. First of all, I'd done these 2 other films, features that were, small crews, small budget, but they were kind of set up more like traditional movies in some ways. Like we had a DP and we had a sound recordist, and it basically was a small version of a big set. And on this one, I just thought, what if I completely blow that up? I shoot it myself, I record sound myself. I work with the actors to like shoot this over the course of a longer period of time, so that way I don't even have to worry about like raising money or really financing it. It essentially could be a no budget production because I can just work around the resources I have, but which you do with most micro budget films anyway, but in a way that was I think even more resourceful because for example, like in the past, if I was shooting everything in 10 days back to back, I would need a lot of resources or time or money or energy to prep for those 10 shoot days. Whereas this time we shot for like 18 total days, 12 main days. But it was like a day and then we were off for 2 weeks and then we'd shoot for 2 days and then we were off for a month or 2. And we kept doing it like that. And because it was set up that way, that changed everything about how the movie was made.
And why did you want to do that?
Honestly, so I had a experience where I was trying to make another film right before this one. It was not like a high budget film, but it was kind of done in the vein of the other 2 films that I was talking about. And I lost a location right as we were beginning to film, and essentially it fell through, this project. And I had the option of either like rebooting it and getting some more money and kind of doing it even bigger, or doing something smaller. And I decided, like I said, just because I'd never done it, I always wanted to, and I felt like, this is maybe the universe telling me, go smaller because you're trying to do the same thing over and over again. Either go for like a big budget and do it that way, or lean on the skills you have. There's plenty of things I'm not good at all, but like camera and color and sound, like that sort of thing always kind of came naturally to me. So I felt like it was a missed opportunity to not make a film go almost like Robert Rodriguez style and what he did with El Mariachi, and lots of other filmmakers do it now. I'm not by no means the only one. But it was just something I wanted to do. And then once I decided I was going to do that, then I just kind of had to ask myself, what's the best way to do it? So if I'm doing everything myself, I don't want back-to-back shooting days unless it's like 2 days, because it would just be too much. I've had films where there was like even 5 days back-to-back, but if I'm the one sending the call sheets and then I'm getting home at like 2 in the morning, and then I have to figure out how to email everybody by like 3 and then get a few hours of sleep before the next morning. And then I'm like groggy when I come in, I'm not focused. So this was like, okay, let me spread this out, have lots of time off, and then in between I can actually let the script evolve too, which is something I've never done. So I went in with a treatment, and I knew the story I was going to tell, but only the first act was fully written. And then after we shot that, then we went back, I showed the actors, some of the footage, the new script I was working on. They helped me come up with ideas, and it just evolved almost as if it was like a documentary project that we were piecing together. And I couldn't do that with like most films, but for this story and this idea, it worked. And the other thing was, like, I had this idea where it would span a year, and I have my son at the time was 2.5.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, if it spans a year and it's a kidnapping thriller, he's going to show up at the beginning and the end of the story. I can shoot him now, which I did, and like the opening scene was the first thing I shot. And then I didn't shoot with him basically again, other than a couple like inserts for a year. And then now he's a year older. So it was kind of like a Linklater-esque thing where we used time as like an element in the narrative. So anyway, all those reasons sort of made it enticing to me to go crazy with it basically and try this experiment. And in the end, I'm really like, whatever, I don't know, hopefully it's well received. I haven't released it yet, but I know for me, it's the project I'm happiest with. So I now like kind of find a way to take this forward, even to bigger projects, because there's so many things I learned on this that I couldn't have learned, with the bigger budget or crew.